We know that industrialization began in Great Britain, and now we're going to examine how it spread to continental Europe and in the United States. So our guiding question is how, after 1815, did continental countries respond to the challenge of industrialization? By the end of the 19th century, which is the 1800s, other European countries and the United States had fully industrialized. Western civilization did so gradually, so it went like little bits at a time with national, it should say, and regional variation, so in different ways basically. More or less, they did not just look at what Great Britain did and copy, they did their own thing. Per capita levels of industrialization. Per capita means per person, and this starts at about the middle of the 18th century, all the way to the eve of World War I in 1913, just a year before it begins. And this is just how much industrial product was produced on average for each person per capita. You can see that by 1860, Great Britain had hit its peak, and they were far ahead of virtually everybody else in the world who had even attempted industrialization. However, by 1913, the United States is the leading country, followed by Great Britain, then Germany, then Belgium, then France. We're used to France being kind of on the cutting edge of technology and society, but you can see that by the 19th century they'll be surpassed by Great Britain and then further surpassed by Germany and the United States. Now, basically, you can see here that there were different ways that nations approached this. By 1750, all countries were pretty much just a cottage industry. Great Britain was far ahead of the continental countries at the beginning of the 19th century. So there were differences in timing. Some countries had like bursts of industrialization like they did in Great Britain's situation. France was just very slow and gradual, for example. There was actually a deindustrialization in this period of time of China and India, which you can read about in McKay. Anyway, agents of industrialization. What are the causes of different industrialization techniques, different industrialization characteristics in each country? Well, it's mostly spurred on by an illegal spread of ideas. Great Britain forbade its inventors from sharing information. Much like today, there's issues with information sharing and like corporate espionage with like China. Same thing back then. However, information got out anyway. This guy named Cockerell produced a large industrial enterprise in Liège, which is in Belgium, and he was able to replicate the steam engine and railway locomotives just like they were in Great Britain. Another one of these illegal idea spreaders, his name is Harcourt, and he is known as the Watt of Germany, and he was in the army during the Napoleonic Wars along with people in Great Britain, and he was able to bring back the steam engine technology to Germany. Governmental support. You can see here there's a political cartoon. It says reduction of the tariff means a reduction in wages. So there were tariff protections for continental countries. That meant that a tariff is a tax on a foreign import, okay, or an export. So tariffs, that just meant that they put taxes on finished goods coming in from other countries to make it cheaper and more tempting to buy finished products from your own country. Belgium led the trend in state-built railroads. Okay, so like the Belgian government was like, yeah, we got to build us some railroads. And so they put up a lot of money to sponsor these railroads, just like the United States will. Prussia guaranteed state treasury insurance for building railroads. So in Prussia, they're like, hey, you private entrepreneurs will insure your railroad ventures just to make it less risky for you because we want to encourage you to build railroads. So the significance, the so what, this results in economic nationalism. The French Revolution really jump-started modern nationalism in Europe. France thought that they were the end-all be-all of liberalism, a light upon other nations, if you will, in Europe. Now, economic nationalism is basically what that means is each country wants to be at the very height, the very best industrialized country that they can be, and so the governments are backing private enterprise in order to make them the best. So, corporate banking is another way that we do this. By the 1830s, Belgian banks received legal backing to limit liability for investing in industry. Again, this is an example of the government teaming up with corporations in order to spur economic growth. Another example is France's Crédit Mobilier. I am so bad at pronouncing things in French. I apologize for that horrible attempt. Their credit stuff, okay, it used large and small investors to build railroads. So the government ensured that France's credit could support all of these ventures, and they said, hey, here, risk-free, have some money, whether you're small or large, and we want you to go and build railroads because we want France to have lots of railroads so we can compete because we're economically nationalistic. Ta-da! So, how after 1815 did continental countries respond to the challenge of industrialization? With nationalism in the form of governmental support and corporate and entrepreneurial support. Entrepreneurs are just private people who want to start their own businesses. All right, so the way the government did this is with tariff protection, for example, in France, with economic nationalism, an example of that is Prussia, and finally, the Belgian example, not finally, another example is Belgium showed us that there were state-owned and built railroads, and finally, Prussia again, state treasury support for investors. Corporate support, there was theft of British technology, and it spread to Belgium, France, and Prussia. Banks promoted investment for large projects, and finally, they expanded into large and small investors. So this is the way that we met the challenges of industrialization on the continent. The end. Thanks for listening.